From around the world and from CBS News in Washington, this is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather. And tonight, a special report. Highway robbery, the big business of stealing cars.
Good evening. President Reagan's sweeping new $180 billion defense package today took heavy shelling, including some from the nation's chief military officer and key Republican senators. The fire came as the Senate began to scrutinize details of the Reagan plan, which the president insists is worth the money because it will significantly strengthen America's nuclear defenses. The two most controversial aspects of the big overall package are deployment of MX missiles and the B-1 bomber. The Senate Armed Services Committee concentrated today on the missile decision, where opposition doubts are deepest. Ike Pappas reports.
The Senate committee immediately zeroed in on the question of vulnerability, whether the MX missiles under the Reagan plan to put them in reinforced Titan and Minuteman silos would survive a Soviet nuclear strike. General David Jones, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said his first choice for a basing scheme was the old Carter administration's plan to shuttle the missiles among thousands of protected shelters, the so-called MPS method.
I think it's no secret that I recommended the MPS system as the best system to provide a survivable ICBM in the mid to late 80s. I was unable to convince the Secretary or the President that the MPS was a survivable system. I remain to be convinced that the alternatives will provide survivability.
Weinberger argued that under the Reagan plan, the silos would be sufficiently hardened with tons of steel and concrete to resist a massive Soviet nuclear blow. But Senator Henry Jackson was not convinced.
Mr. Secretary, we've given the Soviets a better target to shoot at.
I don't agree with that, Senator.
They can saturate the proposed MX sites without much trouble. And, as I understand the administration's own position, and I share it, Soviet accuracy is virtually comparable to ours.
Soviet accuracy is very good. They do not, we believe, have the strength to do the things in the mid-century, mid-decade, that they can do toward the end of that decade. And so for a period when we can and have to have additional strength very quickly, we propose this.
At the end of it, the powerful chairman of the Armed Services Committee, Senator John Tower, who was opposing the MX basing plan, said he heard nothing today to cause him to change his mind.
I'm prepared to examine closely the administration's proposal, but as of this moment, they have no design for the hardened silo, and they have no estimate of what it would cost.
Weinberger believes a compromise can be worked out with congressional opponents of the MX basing plan and that the president's entire five-point strategic package will be passed intact. But today, the Senate Minority Leader, Robert Byrd, labeled that package politically motivated and called on Congress to reject it. Ike Pappas, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
President Reagan presented support from some top officials of administrations back to Eisenhower's to make the case for another military proposal in trouble on Capitol Hill, the sale of AWACS to Saudi Arabia, and Secretary of State Haig went back before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee to argue for that deal. Phil Jones reports.
In a desperate effort to rescue the AWACS sale, President Reagan gathered foreign policy and national security advisors from previous administrations today, a who's who list going all the way back to the Eisenhower administration.
The rejection of this sale would damage the ability of the United States to conduct a credible and effective foreign policy, not only in the Gulf region, but across a broad range of issues.
It would not help U.S. security, it would not help Israeli security to have this sale rejected.
I believe the sale is in the national interest of the United States.
On Capitol Hill, Secretary of State Haig went before the Foreign Relations Committee and left the clear message: no change in the package.
I not only don't expect any additional conditions, I think it would be imprudent in the extreme to seek any.
Meanwhile, the intensity of lobbying on both sides erupted to new heights. A national anti-AWACS committee gathered at the Capitol, first issuing a message to the president, who has accused the Israeli lobby of interfering with this sale.
It is outrageous that AWACS planes should be sent to the Saudis
And with that, some 300 protesters fanned out over Capitol Hill, lobbying offices of uncommitted senators and thanking those already opposed. And in New York, the Israeli foreign minister, speaking at a Foreign Policy Association meeting, attacked the Saudis for interfering in the Mideast peace process. On the other side, the president of the National Association of Arab Americans, while testifying before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, had his own blunt version of why Israel is fighting this sale.
Israel's real intention in attempting to block the air defense package, we believe, is to drive a wedge between the United States and its closest Arab friend, Saudi Arabia.
The administration continues to insist publicly that it is opposed to compromise. However, presidential advisors Meese and Baker have been meeting secretly with several key uncommitted senators. And CBS News has learned that an effort is underway tonight to draft a Senate resolution that would require the president to provide certain assurances to the Senate on Saudi compliance before the sale could occur. But as one Senate source familiar with this effort put it, it all sounds good, but it has no meat. Phil Jones, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
CBS News will broadcast a special report on the president's defense plans tonight at 11:30, 10:30 Central Time.
Here's how I talked my husband into Buick's little limousine. First, I pointed out how elegant it looks. I mean, just look at it. Then I showed him how cushiony and comfortable it feels inside. And I said, just consider how economical the Regal is to drive. I was very convincing. The only problem is, now that I've talked him into it, I can't seem to talk him out of it.
Hi.
Hi.
Wouldn't you really rather have a Buick?
Oh, that soup must really hit the spot.
It does more than that. Hey, you seen the good news about soup, Sonny?
No.
Oh, it's in a lot of magazines and newspapers, huh? What the nutritionists are saying, how nutritious soup is. Look what it says in this magazine. Shows what I always knew. Soup is good food.
Hey, you better run along and get some hot soup in you, Sonny. You're soaking wet.
Stir up the camels. Soup is good food.
The Supreme Court began its 1981-82 term today by issuing hundreds of orders on cases it will or will not hear, and welcoming, without ceremony or fanfare, the first woman to join the brethren on the bench. Fred Graham has that story.
This is an historic occasion.
Like the Jesuits going co-ed.
Gentlemen, things are not going to be any different from the way they've been every 2 minutes to 10 in the history of the court. Now, we've got to think of her exactly as one of the brothers.
Good morning.
The script was a bit more mundane for Sandra O'Connor's first day as a justice. First, driving the Honda to work.
How do you feel today going to work?
Oh, I feel fine, but I'd like to see the oncoming traffic.
As it turned out, the rest of the day was to proceed in an equally undramatic way. At the court, Sandra O'Connor had become a tourist attraction, mostly women. But inside, she said little, and the cases were dull. An irony emerged. She had been controversial for her views on women's rights and abortion, but the court has no cases on women's rights or abortion. Many of the major legal questions surrounding those issues have already been resolved. In fact, there are only a few cases of unusual interest confronting the court this year. The court will decide if the children of illegal aliens have a right to free public education, if juveniles may be executed for murder, the rights of doctors and lawyers to advertise, whether Congress can give one house the power to veto acts of the executive branch, and whether local officials can close down shops that sell drug paraphernalia. One potential controversy for the first woman justice has been avoided. Several years ago, the court dropped the custom of having the newest justice fetch the coffee. Fred Graham, CBS News at the Supreme Court.
A Senate Judiciary Subcommittee opened hearings today on anti-abortion legislation, and predictably, emotions surged. Deborah Potter was there.
Supporters of abortion aired their views even before the hearing began, denouncing the amendment as a sham and a charade.
This is not a states' rights amendment. It is not a compromise. That, in fact, it is a backdoor approach to prohibiting all abortions by allowing a bare majority in Congress to pass abortion legislation.
In testimony before the Senate Judiciary Subcommittee, Senator Robert Packwood warned that this approach could lead to calls to abolish other freedoms.
Popular passion can obscure judgment on occasion. And the Constitution is deliberately written to make that popular passion very hard to write into law.
All I'm saying is, let's see if your side has the votes. Let's see if our side has the votes, and let's see who wins this. Right now, it's totally restricted because of what I think most constitutional authorities would call a lousy set of Supreme Court decisions.
Hatch called in 2 constitutional experts to find out if they agreed, but what he got was an argument.
The government has not in this country been allowed to tell you or me how we must use our bodies, even to save another life, let alone to save something that some people do not regard as a human being.
100 years from today, people will wonder at the very eminent, distinguished, and kind people who take the position they do take in favor of destroying unborn life.
But the 2 legal experts did agree that if the Hatch Amendment passes, it will get around the controversial and emotional issue of when human life begins and give opponents of abortion a much clearer shot at winning a total ban. Deborah Potter, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Experts estimate that just one provision of the Reagan administration's new tax law will result in $27 billion of lost revenue. It turns out that provision was helped through Congress by 3 former Treasury Department officials who now represent companies which stand to profit by it. George Herman explains how it works.
The intention was to help America's troubled basic industries, steel, automobiles, airlines, to modernize their equipment and increase their productivity. But the usual tax incentives, the investment tax credit and faster depreciation write-offs, work only for those companies already making a profit and paying taxes. A poor company only accumulates useless tax credits against taxes it doesn't pay. The new provision works like this. Company A, making no profit and paying no taxes, buys expensive new capital equipment. That qualifies it for huge new tax write-offs which it cannot use. No problem, it simply sells the title to the new equipment to wealthy Conglomerate B. Conglomerate B uses those tax write-offs to lower its own considerable tax bill. After 5 years, when all the tax benefits have been used up, Conglomerate B sells the equipment back to Company A for a token $1. Both sides benefit, and in theory, America is induced by tax benefits to modernize its industrial base. But congressional critics worry that this will serve only to subsidize inefficient companies and poor management with taxpayer dollars. They plan to try to tighten up the provision in the next tax bill. George Herman, CBS News, Washington.
That's Jane Russell, starlet, full-figured then and full-figured now. And today we gals know how to keep our full figures looking pretty. Under the smoothest fashions, try the Playtex 18-hour seamless bra. Not a seam showing to spoil the smooth look. And the unique fabric that stretches for real support, real comfort in the 18-hour bra makes 18-hour girdles control comfortably. Try Playtex 18-hour bras and girdles. Full figures never look better.
The new Sambo's has something no other restaurant has. Family Sam and his special 99-cent breakfasts.
Sam, I told your brother Loomis about your 99-cent breakfast, and he's laughing.
Really? Loomis laughing about money?
Phoebe thinks you're giving 2 eggs and 4 pancakes, or a waffle and an egg, or 6 pancakes for 99 cents. Isn't that funny? You're not laughing, Sam.
The new Sambo's. There's no place like it.
The British government said today that it has approved prison reforms for Northern Ireland and plans a detailed announcement later this week. But in an apparent effort to calm Protestant fears of concessions to IRA prisoners, the government said any reforms will apply to all inmates. Today's government statement follows the end Saturday of a hunger strike at Belfast's Maze Prison by IRA inmates demanding, among other things, prison reforms. 3 years ago, President Carter issued an executive order substantially restricting CIA activities in this country. But as Robert Shackney has found out, the Reagan administration now has sent to the Senate and House Intelligence Committees rewritten guidelines that appear to remove some of the restraints on the CIA's domestic activities.
According to Capitol Hill sources, the language is so vague
that the CIA could be free to resume domestic spying or engage in covert activities within the United States.
The sources say that in one interpretation, the new language would appear to allow the CIA to engage in physical surveillance of Americans within this country, a mission now legally performed only by the FBI. Would also appear to permit the CIA to resume collecting intelligence about the activities of U.S. citizens within the country, would appear to allow intelligence agency to infiltrate and influence domestic organizations, and would appear to authorize secret mail openings without warrants.
Last week, Admiral Bobby Inman, the CIA Deputy Director, is reported to have told the Senate Intelligence Committee that the new language was not meant to authorize any substantial CIA domestic activity or interfere with civil liberties protection. But today, when two senators, on behalf of the Intelligence Committee, sought some legal clarification, the Justice Department replied it would not comment on the record. The new rules are not in their final form. Last March, an early draft drew so much congressional criticism that the administration promised not to promulgate the guidelines until the Intelligence Committees had been consulted and had a chance to comment. Robert Shackney, CBS News, Washington.
2.5 weeks from now, heads of state of 22 nations will meet at the Mexican resort of Cancun to try to sort out problems between the haves and the have-nots, the rich and the poor, the so-called North-South issues. But right now, 800 miles from that posh conference setting, near the Mexican city of Rio Bravo, David Dick has found a microcosm of some of those problems.
One tractor, one man working on a huge field in the fertile valley of northeastern Mexico just over the border from the United States. It seems peaceful, uncomplicated. But even as the birds search for the worms uncovered by the machine, the peasants, the campesinos of Tamaulipas and other agricultural states of Mexico are in a desperate struggle to get what they claim is rightfully and legally theirs, a share of the land. Many are squatters. On August 6th of this year, about 550 people built huts of grass and scraps of wood here in the heart of 38,000 acres of government-owned land. They said wealthy landowners and the federal and state bureaucracies had conspired to thwart the agrarian reform law that said the peasants were entitled to about 50 acres of land for each family to farm. Last week, these peasants got their answer. The army moved in and burned down everything. The peasants were evicted. A Mexican reporter said those responsible had one answer: we know nothing, we only have our orders. Many of the peasants retreated to the Communist Party headquarters in the town of Rio Bravo, where their leaders urged them to continue the struggle. Some of the campesinos briefly returned to the squatters' camp, which the army had destroyed. This time, when cameras appeared, the soldiers went away. A Texas Farm Workers Union organizer, also active in Mexico, Jesus Moya, said what happened here was not an isolated occurrence.
We are seeing throughout Mexico a phenomenon where peasants are beginning to uprise for land. Some of these people have been struggling for 20 years. I mean, they've been asking the government for a piece of land for 20 years.
Sin embargo, quisiera yo a spokesman for Mexico's Secretary of Agriculture denied any wrongdoing. He said that this was a federally controlled water district development and that the peasants had been offered other land, that it's being prepared for them. But so far, the peasants say they haven't seen it, and they call it the big lie. The leaders say they will organize, try to get support, and return to the same place. But for now, there seems to be little more than hope. David Dick, CBS News, outside Rio Bravo, Mexico.
It was a mystery to us how she could live in these practical times, yet still retain a certain sense of style and flair. Her 1982 Cutlass Supreme, for example. Her roomy, comfortable Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme. How were we to know that that Cutlass was really a reflection of her practical side? It certainly didn't show, but she knew. Even today, there's still room to do it with style.
Running a family business is a tough job.
Keeping it in the family is even tougher. That's why for 2 generations we've worked with Connecticut General.
CG helped recapitalize the corporation and insured us so we'd never have to sell stock to raise cash.
So far they've saved us a lot of money, but we figure that's their job. After all, when it's family business, we're tough as steel.
A business can get so big you can't do it all yourself, and that's when your family's business becomes our business. Connecticut General. We keep some pretty tough customers happy.
Revitalized Chrysler reported today its sales rose during September for the 12th straight month. Chrysler had a 4% gain over sales for September 1980. General Motors sales for the month increased nearly 3%. Ford reported sales up 24% over last September. New or old, cars in this country appear increasingly likely to be headed into the $4 billion a year traffic in stolen vehicles. Statistics indicate that cars which used to be borrowed by kids for a joyride are now stolen by professionals for illicit profits. But as Bernard Goldberg reports, just as the problem seems to be shifting into high gear, the experience of one state suggests a possible remedy.
He is 28 years old and has been stealing cars since he was 11.
While you're sleeping, I'm creeping.
Stealing cars?
Stealing cars.
He's doing time for auto theft now, but says he made $25,000 last year plying his trade.
It's easy for me, because I know what I'm doing.
And there are a lot more like him. The fact is, a vehicle is stolen somewhere in the United States every 28 seconds. Last year, more than 1,100,000 were stolen, the worst year ever. How can it happen? Police say they're tied up investigating violent crime. So the insurance companies and ultimately the auto policy holders keep on paying.
If they're fully insured, it's an incremental additional cost for someone in New York of $200 a year, everyone in Chicago $150 a year, just for auto theft.
This used to be a car, and so did this, and this. More than half the time, thieves don't even want the whole car. They just want to pick it clean, strip it for parts. Why? Because auto parts are in short supply, and thieves can sell them to unscrupulous body shops quickly and easily.
If you run out of gas in a certain area, if you don't get back to the car within a half hour or so, you're going to find your wheels missing, or they'll slip milk boxes under the tires, let the air out, unbolt the tire and walk away with it, that type of thing.
And sometimes the thieves are sending the cars so far away that they'll never be recovered. Mixed in with perfectly legal shipments like this one to Kuwait, customs officials often find stolen cars. And take these trucks. In fact, someone did just that. They were stolen in California and recovered in Mexico, which is a major foreign market for stolen U.S. vehicles. Officials estimating as many as 20,000 wind up in Mexico each year.
The problem along the Mexican border is that they drive them right across. Quite often they're into Mexico before they're even reported stolen in the U.S.
It's a low-cost, low-risk, high-profit business.
Arthur Burke and his partner Billy Powers are part of the Special State Police Auto Squad in Massachusetts, where about the only law car thieves obey is the law of supply and demand.
Everybody knows it's the easiest way to make money.
Last year in Massachusetts, more than 57,000 cars vanished from suburban shopping malls, downtown parking lots, even driveways. Many of them stolen to order.
There are people out there that provide some of these young kids what we call a shopping list. They'll give them a list of 10 cars, 15 cars. It'll be a Grand Prix, a Thunderbird. They can get specific on the color and the amount of doors in the car. These kids will take it, 2 or 3 of them together, and go out in the night, and they'll grab you 10 cars and bring them in and pick up their money in cash the next day, no questions asked.
All this has given Massachusetts a distinction it would rather do without. It is the stolen car capital of America. But now, for the first time since the mid-1960s, something new is happening in Massachusetts. The auto theft rate is actually dropping. One reason, a tough new state law enacted last year that says very simply, if you're convicted of stealing a car more than once, you go to jail for at least a year. No plea bargains.
The tide has turned from a rate that was increasing month by month in Massachusetts. We're now dropping at the rate of approximately 0.75% per month. And I would have to say that right now we're starting to win the war.
But that depends on whom you talk to.
What's it going to take for there to be fewer car thefts?
Take a car to bed, would you?
Take a car to bed with you? That's about it, right?
Yes.
Bernard Goldberg, CBS News, Boston.
When we eat our shredded wheat, we never leave them whole. We mash them up and bash them up, we smash them in the bowl. We crush them, break them, squash them, squeeze them, twist them in our fist. We grind them into tiny, tasty bits.
Nabisco shredded wheat, big or little, made of 100% natural whole wheat, with no added sugar, no added salt.
They feel so good, they taste so good for breakfast. We love that whole wheat flavor. We love that whole wheat crunch.
Nabisco shredded wheats, the great taste of whole wheat. No added sugar, no added salt.
You're not mixing A1 steak sauce in your ground beef?
A1 in ground beef?
My dear sister, there is steak in that ground beef. And what's better for steak than A1? And I bet you have. Here it is. A1's herbs and spices make ground beef taste like ground steak. Hamburgers and meatloaf are juicy and tastier. Just mix 3 tablespoons into every pound. 1, 2, 3.
What a difference.
Sure. A1 makes ground beef taste like ground steak.
Considering inflation, if it's still a penny for your thoughts, you must not have much on your mind. But a penny will still buy one product it bought some 60 years ago, although, as Steve Young reports, that's something of a hollow claim.
Back in the 1920s, the penny gumball first went on sale, when a penny was a penny. Today, most people regard a penny as a joke, but it still buys a gumball at any of 250,000 penny gumball machines all over America. Profits are split with organizations like Kiwanis or the Lions, which run local youth programs. So kids get something for their penny twice.
Go through the yellow pages and try to find somebody that sells a consumer good for a penny. I don't think you can. We might be the only ones in the nation still attempting to do that.
The mystery is, after so many years, how can they still sell gumballs for a penny? After all, the 13 ingredients in penny gumballs have risen in price, especially the sugar that goes into the gooey gum base. The answer to the mystery is that the penny gumball began to shrink. And then, 10 years ago, new technology made it possible to switch from a solid penny gumball to a version with a hole in the middle. To further cut costs, the size of the hollow core has been increased. In the good old days, there were 144 penny gumballs to the pound. Now, there are 235. The classic flavors have remained the same: grape, orange, lemon, lime, and cinnamon. The company intends to keep the machines simple, again to preserve the price. No electronics, no bells and whistles. Penny gumballs will be around for at least the next 4 or 5 years, but still the Ford company is hedging its bets by tooling up so its machines can vend gumballs 3 for a nickel. Steve Young, CBS News, Akron, New York.
From Washington, Dan Rather, CBS News. Good night.
For some time now, General Motors has been talking with people who know cars.
I'm Ed Dame, General Manager, Avis Car Leasing. Last year, my company bought more GM cars for lease to our customers than any other make.
But what about average GM car buyers? When they replace the GM car they bought new with another new car, 70% buy GM again. In the U.S., no other major car company, foreign or domestic, comes close. See a GM dealer for your next car.
Lisa, the kids we sponsor just won the downhill.
Terrific. Let's have some coffee.
Whoa.
Only half a cup. I thought you liked my coffee.
I love the rich taste. It's the caffeine I can do without.
Me too. That's why we're drinking Brim decaffeinated coffee.
This is Brim?
This is Brim, freeze-dried, and it's decaffeinated. So you don't have to stop at half a cup.
If it tastes this rich, I don't want to stop. Fill it to the rim.
With Brim?
Fill your cup to the rim with the richness of Brim.
From around the world and from CBS News in Washington, this has been the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather. Tonight at 11:30, Weapons for the Future, Questions for Now, anchored by Bob Schieffer at 11:30. This is CBS.